I'm in DC.
Got it.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome again to the third of four sort of office hour Q&A sessions that we're hosting after we held the two earlier training sessions of APIs transitioning to GA4. And my name is Shay Totten. I'm the Newsroom Success Manager here at API, and I work on the product strategy team. And our team, along with Claire, who's joining us today too, have been helping to kind of create some training videos, some slide decks, and some resource guides from other places as well, including our consultant, Brad Garrick, who'll be back again next week for one final Q&A on implementation of GA4 and using Google Tag Manager. So before I introduce today's guest, Nicole from the Google Insights team, I just want to clarify, Nicole is not on the GA4 team. So if you have GA4 specific related complaints, harangues, or questions, still put them in chat and we'll collect them and we'll answer them next week. But Nicole is here to talk really about GA4 reports, because there's a lot of questions coming up around GA4 reporting, and Nicole's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes on Google Insights to kind of help sort of think about how to use the reporting systems within GA4 and with other products as well. So we've given her a list of about a dozen questions that folks had submitted before today. Others may come up as well, but for now, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to Nicole.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Shay. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all virtually. I, as Shay mentioned, don't sit on the GA4 team, but I do sit on the Google News Initiative on our tools and products team. So essentially what we do is create products for publishers to help them better understand how to use their Google Analytics data. And we have our tools exist on the Google Analytics API. So I know it probably more than I would like to, but that hopefully will be able to help everyone here ask some questions or get through some answers as to how to better understand GA4. Overall, I would say that GA4 is definitely a lot different than Universal Analytics, but I have been able to basically figure out most reports that I have wanted to use from Universal Analytics in GA4. They just look and feel a little bit different, obviously, and are in different areas. I think that it's more about change in general than GA4 not being able to show us some of the stuff that we're looking for, at least hopefully, fingers crossed. And I would say that the big differences between UA and GA4, and I'll just kind of like go over the big ones and we can dive into the questions so that I don't waste any time, is essentially we know everything is now event-based data. So everything from UA used to have other types of measurements, and now everything is event-based. And there are 4 different types of events. And so getting to know and understanding those and using them to the best of your ability, I would say, is going to be super useful when you actually go into reporting. And I'm happy to review them. If anyone wants that, feel free to throw that in the chat, and I'm happy to kind of review those different 4 ones. But after that, I would say it's a lot of like the machine learning insights that are now being added as well. The search function in GA4 in the search bar is a lot stronger than Universal Analytics too. So if you're ever looking for a really quick insight, high chance you could probably get that from typing it into the search bar. Those are things. And then obviously everything now can be connected. So like Google Ad Manager, et cetera. The 4 types of events. One are the automatically collected events, and that's just like when you have your tags on your site, they'll automatically be collected. Then we have the recommended events, and those are events that are not automatically collected but already have a naming convention, and so you can pull those in. And then we have enhanced measurement. I could show you where that lives, but essentially it's kind of like scroll depth, some video stuff, and that is where you can turn that in or turn that on in where you would set up your data stream. So if you have like a web data stream or an app data stream, if you click on that data stream, it'll lead you in and you'll see enhanced measurements, and then you can click it open. I'm happy to show you where that lives. And then the last are custom events. So out of all of the ones that I already named, if you can no longer find what you need, or if you need to track something specific, like a certain web page for a checkout flow or a thank you page, et cetera, you'll go into probably your custom events to set that up. Yeah, so those are the 4, and happy to send over information on those 4 too, or anything that we kind of like talk about today, because I know that there's quite a bit of information. All right, Shay, I can get started with the questions that you had first originally sent over to me, and then I might need your help in remembering the other 2 threads that we had open with other questions, if you don't mind.
That's fine. I think I have them all collected into one document here, Joe.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, so you can just let me know which ones I may have missed or not. Yes, absolutely, Sarah. Great. I don't see anyone's face, so I don't know if I've met any of you. And I'm usually good with names, but I have a lot of names. So it's nice to see you, Sarah, and happy to connect offline. Yes. All right. So to get started, okay. So how might we crowdsource a list of common universal analytics reports and recreate them in GA4? I wish that there was a help center article or something super useful where it was just like, this is the report and this is the new one. Unfortunately, there's not. But what I will say is that Google search, not trying to plug my own company, but has been my best friend when I'm learning GA4. So what I would do is this, is if we don't go over something where it shows like maybe this was a similar report, or if you have something specific, I would be more than happy to help you figure out how to find that in GA4. There's no easy button for this one though, unfortunately. I will say I have been able to find almost anything just by actually like searching it online, like how do I find this type of report? There are a lot of external parties that have written about stuff like custom search engine, or I think there's been like Boll and Branch. There's other third parties that are pretty good actually at like going through a lot of the GA4 data. So there's no short answer yes there. I wish there was, but I'm happy to help if you need certain reports. I think it's fun. The next question, would it make sense be possible to create a resource that shows where to find or how to create common UA reports in GA4? So it's kind of like a things, but there's an example. We can find a list of stories in UA under behavior, site content, all pages. Where's that? How can you get that in GA4? Okay, so essentially in GA4, there is a pages and screens report. I'm actually gonna share my screen really quick, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. And tell me if this is working. I can't, good, okay. I'm really not the best at using Zoom. I hate saying that. Anyway, so, all right, this is the GA4 instance. So we'll start kind of from the beginning on it. But essentially what this is showing is, also like there is no data in this account only because it's a test account that we use so that I can show you what it looks like to have admin access. Because there are certain buttons that I wouldn't be able to show you otherwise, but unfortunately no data. So I'll switch between this one and this one, which is actually just like, oh, I just want to do the Google merchandising store. So that I can actually show you real data if we have any questions on that type of stuff. And everyone has access to the Google merchandising store as well. So in case you ever needed an account that you kind of want to play around in with data, you can go to just like Google Analytics and then click on the Google merchandising store or like type that in to learn more about it. So anyway, underneath reports, we are going to have engagement under lifecycle, and then you're going to have pages and screens. And so essentially this is actually where you can find a lot of the information and data that you need for all pages from before, or at least like, and this is again, not helpful. So maybe if I show you with more information, you'll see what I'm talking about. That is where I would go for certain pages and screens information. Now, I'm assuming that there's a baseline knowledge of Google Analytics right now, which might not be the best, might not be actually what's happening. So for just so that everyone else knows, like there's ways that you can kind of work with all of this data to make it work for you. You can add a filter, and this is going to actually like, there's going to be platform device. No. Yeah. Okay. So this answers one of the questions that's going to come later probably, but someone did ask if I have a web data stream, an app data stream, and I want to be able to report on just web, or I want to report on just app before I combine the two, because we're also known now for creating a cross-domain tracking between web and app data. This is actually where you can do, so you can create a filter underneath all of like your reports tab. On any of these reports that you open up, you can add a filter. And when you add a filter, you just filter for platform. And then once you filter for platform, you can like say, I just want to look at web, I just want to look at iOS or Android or all of them. So you're able to kind of like work through a lot of your data by adding that type of filtration. And you could also add a filtration on, I only want to look at mobile, I only want to look at desktop, et cetera. And then you also have the ability to like share this report or edit the comparisons that are happening within this report as well. And I will say the one difference that I've noticed myself personally between Universal Analytics and GA4 is that a lot of the data that we're looking at is essentially able to be looked at within the reports without having to create your own report now. Like I think that sometimes in Universal Analytics, there were a lot of different like things that you had to do. And this kind of feels a little bit more simplified to me because we went from, I think Universal Analytics had, I don't even know, like a ridiculous amount of reports. And we've tried now to simplify it within GA4, but then add the ability to customize everything without having to start from scratch. So that's one thing that's really great. And then over here, you can use the search function. So if you're looking for a particular page path or a landing page or a section page that is really important to you, you can actually just like type in, and I don't have a good example. I mean, like clearance is probably, oh, I didn't spell that right. Yeah, okay, so I don't know. If you're looking for something specific, the search function is great. And then the one other thing that I will say is that this other like filtration is really fantastic if you're looking for other ways to kind of move through the pages that you might have been looking for before or the screens that you want to see, so that you know exactly like what you're pulling from. And you can do page title and screen page path, so or page title, screen name. If I didn't answer whoever asked that question before, again, I'm happy to connect offline so that I can like better answer that. And I see, are there any filters similar to bounced users and non-bounced users? Couldn't find one, and I know GA4 doesn't use bounce rate. So GA4 actually, let me pull this up here. I'm gonna see. So GA4 doesn't have bounce rate because it has the inversion of bounce rate, which is engagement rate, which sounds kind of interesting, but essentially, you can see, let me see where I can pull up something good for you to look at. Maybe we'll do this and then 1 second. So what we've done now, okay, so the reason, really quick background, Giovanni, on bounce rate is essentially that bounce rate was a metric that actually wasn't a super reliable metric. The reason that it wasn't is because, and maybe you know this, so cut me off, but essentially if a user landed on your page and they read everything on your page, but there was no event that would be triggered for a publisher to know that the user was on the page. So if you didn't have scroll depth triggered, or if the person didn't click, not that you could click and stay on that page really though. So if there wasn't something that was essentially triggering knowing whether or not a user was still on that page, a user could go to a certain page, read everything on that page, and then if they were to click out or leave, it would be counted as a bounce, when in reality, actually, like the user had consumed everything on that page, but there was nothing to say like, this is where I am. And so essentially, like once you implemented scroll depth or something, your bounce rate typically you would see it deflate. And the reason then that they didn't really want to use a lot of bounce rate in GA4 was because they did the inverse of that, which is engagement rate. And I think is an incredible metric. So essentially engagement rate. So right now we're in acquisition. You won't find any of these detailed looking reports in any overview tab, but you'll see them here. And essentially this is just user acquisition, but it'll have this entire like top line amount of data over here, which looks a lot like kind of like the graphs that you would see in UA, but it gives you a lot more information. So we see new users, engaged session, engagement rate, etc. So engaged session is sessions lasting longer than 10 seconds. You had a conversion event or 2 or more screen page views. And so this is the event metric that I would most likely pay more attention to. Like instead of saying this is how many people left, you should probably start measuring, or I would recommend measuring around this is how many were engaged. And then you have your engagement rate, et cetera. So I would start filtering or looking for that information instead of bounce rate particularly. And if you have more questions, can go back to it. Okay, what is the future sense of Google Data Studio in the context of the GA4 release? What more does it offer? Okay, so a couple things that I'm going to note here is one is going to be the GA4 connector to Sheets as well as the Google Data Studio reports. So for Google Data Studio reports right now, the API for GA4 is not yet on par with what the UI is in GA4. So you're going to be able to run much deeper or more extensive reports in the actual Google Analytics UI that we're in right now than you will be able to with just the API that's available. It's definitely like getting there, and it's becoming more and more comparable every single day. And I'm sure that in like 2 months' time, it will be ready to go and it's going to be working fine. But what I would recommend personally at the moment is I would run as many reports as you can within the UI and then start building your Data Studio reports when GA4 has officially launched. That's probably not the best answer, but that is, I would say, the best way to go about it at the moment. The other thing about the GA4 connector. So in Google Sheets, you have the ability to add an add-on. That sounds repetitive, but add an add-on, which is essentially the Google Analytics add-on. And then within that, you can actually like pull up all of the metrics and dimensions on like the right-hand side of the sheet. And you can look at what Google Analytics would look like on that sheet. And I'm happy to show that as well if anyone would like to, so just let me know in the chat. But essentially within that add-on, you can we're waiting right now for the GA4 because it does not currently exist. So I reached out to the team. They are working on it internally. They are planning for it to have a like similar timed launch with GA4. And we're definitely putting some pressure on them given like the standard of everything and people needing to create reports with a platform that's going to be like the only one available. And I will absolutely keep everyone in the loop on that. But if there's a reason you can't find it is because it does not exist currently. But it is already in the alpha. So they're very close to like moving forward with it. And there's also an external like group that you can post to connect with the internal group that's creating that. And I'm happy to kind of like share that link for everyone if you want to like tune into that to kind of stay posted on when it's ready. But yeah, so essentially that's kind of like what the moment is for, I guess, like all GA currently, for like the connection to data and everything, which again, I know is not like absolutely perfect 100%, but I'm just kind of giving you like where we're all at the moment. All right. How easy is it to share a report with others in your company? It sounds like it was probably answered internally, but Shay, do you want me to go a little bit deeper on that or?
Yeah, I think there's been some lingering questions in terms of just like the just what levels of permissions you might have to have, and if that's changed at all in GA4 in terms of how easy you can share things across the company.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to go into, okay, so all of the reports that you're looking at here, I have to go back into the one that has no data. So all of the reports here, if you customize this report and then, wait, hold on. That's not what I wanted to show you quite yet. So if you have this report and you share this link, I'm pretty sure, oh gosh, there is a level, I want to say marketer access you might have to have in order to like look at other reports. I can double check that, Shay, if you want to make that note. I can make sure to like tell you the proper permission. You do need to have a certain level of permission to look at them. What I will say is that that's how you can easily share it, and that's everywhere within the reports area, or you can download the file and send it so that if like you can't give somebody access on a report you're trying to share, that's the easiest way to do it. Now, the explorations report is essentially like where you can go to create your own reports. So for those that are not yet familiar with GA4 entirely, like there's a bunch of different reports in the Explore tab that you can look at to create something more specific that you're looking to measure on. And each of these reports kind of explain exactly like what they would help with. And so you can kind of pick whatever works the best for you. But once you create a report, it kind of like saves here. As you can see, it's been me just messing around. And we also have like 5 of these accounts, so I don't even know which one I'm mostly in. But when you're here in the explorations, you can actually like share this here with somebody if you would like. And then it will say that the exploration will be shared with users of the exploration properly in read-only mode. So it's not yet collaborative. It's not like a collaborative report. It's just saying like, this is the report I have shared. The other thing that I want to note is that in reports, here we go. Okay, so this is not available in the demo account, but this is called the library. So the library is where you can actually store all of the reports that you're trying to like work on. And you can also like group them together based off of like whatever you may be measuring. And once this loads, you'll see, here we go, all the collections that you can have where you can essentially like add certain things that you want to look at all of the time in your collection. And then this, of course, looks a little bit different. But all this is showing you is like, these are the reports that are available on that left-hand tab on the screen before. Like, this is all of just like what's happening underneath life cycle. And you can like choose to keep certain things in here that you want to always look at. Like, oh, I don't need to look at publisher ads. I don't need to look at in-app purchases. Like, I don't need any of that for this specific collection of things that I would like to look at. And like, these are the overview reports. If I wanted to like add this in here, I could. So you can kind of drag and drop to decide like what type of actual like collection you want, and you can save it to your collection, etc. And then if you go back, you can also then create a new report. And when you create a new report, you will be able to, 1 second. I think you can, no, you can just edit these. Okay, cool. So then once you create a new report, so if I wanted to, before landing page was added underneath engagement, and I will say landing page is very important for publishers in general. I was essentially telling publishers to create it on their own and then like add it to your bar, because any report that you personally create and you're like, this would be so useful for me to look at and see every single day, you can essentially take that report and then add it so that it stays permanent on the left-hand side here for you. But thankfully, everyone was adding landing page so frequently that Google Analytics team has now added it for everyone automatically. So that is what I would say. There's a lot going on in the library, but know that that's where you can like create your own reports. You can look at your reports all the time. You can add it to your own side tab bar, because anything that you do within your own login is only like on your login. It's not on everybody else's. All right. Explorations, which are GA's term for custom report, can be a bit finicky unless the creator specifically sets the permission settings to allow everyone. Yeah, that's true. You just have to be careful with like your permission settings for those reports. Definitely kind of annoying. It'll be something that you kind of learn as you go through, and the GA4 team could change it, but at the moment, that's kind of like what we're working with. And I think that that answers also how you can kind of like categorize them into folders. So I think we got that one done. Now, Shay, this is when we have other emails that okay. I'm gonna see if I think I have it. I see one question is, oh, connects to Google Sheets. Okay, so I just talked about that. Okay, the few newsrooms to get the reports to only go back to February 13th. I'm not entirely certain about that. I don't know if that's like a one-off where we can discuss it, but is that something that's continuing to happen? Like you can only access data back to February 13th? And is that February 13th, I'm assuming, of this year? I don't know who that was about.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're on the call today, but I can try to find out and reach back out to them too.
Yeah, if you want to just like loop me
with them. It did look like it was all from February 13th of this year.
Okay, definitely loop me into a thread, because okay, like I just have some more questions for them to make sure that we understand the tagging and everything. It could be a glitch, which is why I'm kind of, anyway. How to change the graph views from daily to monthly. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, every area that you're in within the reports tab should have the ability to change your calendar. So, and I don't know actually if you can like permanently change it. That's a really good question. But all of the graphs, if you're looking at a snapshot, it will be up on your like top right-hand corner where you can change it from like anything that you're honestly looking at, or you can do like comparison data. So if you want to compare like this month to the previous day of the week, or the previous month, or the same period of like last year, the match the day of the week. Like, I think that actually, the same period last year to me is actually like the most useful tab once you have all of your data from over a year in your account. Because I know with publishers, we're always measuring like the fluctuations of traffic based off of things that are happening in the news and in the world, et cetera. So that can sometimes be useful. If you're looking at a specific, oh no, I always do that where I accidentally click on another tab. If you're looking at a more specific type of report, so it's, you know, like user acquisition instead of overview, where you'll be able to find like some of that data, it still should be in either the top right corner. And then I think that there's There's one where I think it's your homepage. That's a little bit different. If you're looking at something on your homepage, yeah, here it is. It will actually be here in the bottom left corner. So like that's where you'll find your comparison data. All right, I know that we're at time, so I want to be very mindful of everyone's time. If you need to drop, that's absolutely fine. I think, I think there's like one other or two other questions I might be missing.
The only one that was really what you kind of answered was really just was how app data would look. And I think you
Yes.
you kind of looked at that one. So
Does everyone want me to show that again? Or do you know, like, oh wait, the one thing I did say I would show to everyone is where you can find the enhanced measurement within your data stream. But if you want me to show you again how to filter on your data stream for reporting, let me know, but it will definitely be in the recording. So once you go into your setup assistant, you'll kind of be able to see like all of the stuff here. And then if you go into your data streams, and Setup Assistant is perfect to do if you are learning GA4 and you're getting everything set up, like definitely go through everything. The data streams are here. So we only have a web data stream, but there's iOS, Android, etc. So once you click on your web data stream, you'll come into this. Hopefully you don't see this, like we don't have any data, that's why. But enhanced measurement is right here. And so if you click on this little like settings, it'll open up all of your enhanced measurements, and you can toggle all of these on or off based off of like what you would like for enhanced measurements to capture on your site. And then the second that you turn them on, it'll automatically start collecting data. Is there any other like last minute questions? I do want to be mindful of everybody's time, but I know that that was a lot. It was like a speed round of questions.
yeah, I think that was great. So if other folks have questions, I know Elizabeth asked if you could share that link on how to stay in the loop on the Sheets add-on.
Yes, absolutely. I would be happy to. And then everyone, if you have any, like, if you have questions, you can absolutely reach out to Shay, and Shay, no worries. Feel free to like loop me in and connect me with all of them. And yeah, I think that that would be great. Yeah, I have no other, I mean, I could probably talk about Google Analytics forever, so I will not, and I can stop here, but it was, thank you all so much for joining today. And I hope I was able to answer and at least show you all some information on Google Analytics 4. So.
Yeah, no, this was great. And if anybody has any last minute questions, we can stay on for a couple minutes. If there's something else that popped up as Nicole was speaking today.
Yeah, I'm happy to also, I have a few extra minutes too, in case anyone has additional questions. So I'm happy to like stay on and answer them if needed, but okay. Thank you all so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nicole. So just as and feel free to unmute or raise your hand and we can answer questions as we go. But in the meantime, we did put together, I'm going to put it in the chat, a little, for folks who may have joined late, or for other folks who might be interested in sort of figuring out where to start with GA4. I did put up like a little blog post outline on how to use our resource guides. I'm going to put that in the chat. And then I'll just drop my email again in the chat as well, in case you do have any more follow-up questions after this, and I can pass them on to Nicole. Or if you have other questions in general about the GA4 setup process itself, we are going to do one more of these Q&A sessions with Brad Garrick next week. So feel free to email me. Yeah, go ahead, Giovanni. Go ahead and unmute. Have a question.
Hi there. I'm seeing if popping on. Can you guys see me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. And yes, it was quite early in San Diego. So did not roll out of bed very soon before the meeting. So, but thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. Just curious a little bit more, and it may have been covered in a previous session, so apologies, and I'll definitely watch the recordings at the end of the month. But with the custom events, one of the things we've been trying to do is like there's a widget that we want to be able to toggle or track the on and off use of that widget and how it impacts scroll depth and other metrics, because we think there's a lot of great ways to vet a product, whether it's actually contributing to your business goals, not just from a qualitative standpoint, but from a quantitative standpoint as well. So it's kind of it's been very difficult for our team and some of the other teams we've worked on to figure out how we target like toggles and the code and whatnot. So I didn't know if there was any like quick and dirty thing that you would recommend us looking at, or whether you've already discussed it, we should just wait a week for the conversations to come live. Yeah. Anyways, hopefully that kind of makes sense.
Shay, do you want to answer? Because I actually don't know about your other session, so I'll let you answer first.
Yeah, no, I don't think we've, it's a good question. I don't think we've covered that yet, Claire. So, I mean, that's something I can definitely send to Brad and we can talk about, we can sort of put it up in the FAQ, and also I can reach out if you want to send me an email. I can sort of reach out specifically and just sort of give you some feedback, but it's a good question to add. So are you already using Tag Manager to sort of, to manage any kind of like events and triggers and things like that? Because I feel like that's where, I mean, Brad will want to go. So if you're using that, I mean, that would be what he's been talking about. I think we talked about some events, but I don't know. That was mostly around like subscription and paywall type stuff. So you're talking about like something that would be like what, like a trigger to read more type thing, like that kind of or like a different kind of widget.
Yeah, like for instance, we're going to be using this widget called Beeline Reader, which helps with accessibility. And we want to know whether Beeline Reader increases scroll depth, and whether the people who are using it maybe increases session time. We want a way to be able to measure that, but the Beeline Reader team doesn't have a custom event. So we're having to basically try to figure out how to create one based on the code that changes on a web page when that widget is triggered on. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do. And for context, we're with Newspack. So we work, through the WordPress CMS. And we've been encouraged to, and this is where things get confusing. There's SiteKit, Google SiteKit. We've been encouraged to use Google SiteKit as a way of adding tags, which I haven't seen that functionality within SiteKit. So I'm still learning that. And we've been told not to go through directly Google Tag Manager. So there's a lot of like layers, and CMSs seem to have a role in this, and it's still very, very confusing for us. So we're trying to figure that out.
Okay. Yeah. Why don't you send me an email outlining some of that, because I'd be interested to see what Brad's take is on that as well. So,
okay.
Yeah, because that sounds good. And I'll be interested to talk with you separately too about Beeline Reader, because that's something that our team has talked about. As we sort of look at sort of this intersection with like tech and journalism and some of the tech talks we're doing, we're thinking about doing one with on accessibility. And so we're interested in some of these tools that have been developed. And I know we've had some discussions with Beeline. So I'd be curious to sort of see how it's working for you. So
sure. Yeah. Sounds great.
Follow up at some point. All right. Thank you.
You bet.
All right. If there's not any more questions, I guess we can, hold on a second. Let me see if we got one more here. Hold on. Okay, so Amanda asks, fairly new to the GA4 space, but I've heard that Google Signals can cause thresholds, hiding rows with little data for other data, but that it also needs to be on for any potential demographic data. Is there anything particular about Google Signals that would be helpful? Is it a beneficial feature to have, or does it potentially cause problems for data going to other reports?
Yeah, so okay, really quick on Google Signals, that's essentially like where you can get the cross-device and cross-platform reporting based essentially. So if you have like an app and web data, you'll need to use Google Signals in order to have that cross-device platform tracking, which essentially means if I'm a user on your app and then I move over to web, it'll let you like kind of report on that within Google Analytics. And then I know that there's like obviously some stronger marketing capabilities when you use Google Signal, because you kind of have like more information on the user. And then I'm trying to think of like other high level things, but I would definitely say that it's worthy or worthwhile if you essentially like have anything on like ads personalization as well. Like that's when Google Signals would be really useful. And like cross-device platform. I would say that those are like the reasons that you would definitely like want to use Google Signal, if that makes sense. And the thresholding, that was something different. So, I mean, thresholding in general can kind of like happen in certain areas on your site. But essentially, I think that when you're in your Google Analytics instant, you can essentially like, there's different like graphs that you'll see where it essentially will tell you if you don't have enough information, or like there's thresholding data that needs to be like updated or like connected in order to have something else happen for you. it'll be like a little like warning with like an exclamation point if I'm thinking about the same thing. And like if essentially there aren't enough users within a certain event or within, I would say yes, within a certain event, it's going to be hard for the data to like be analyzed with insights or like machine learning insights and capabilities, because there's a certain amount that needs to come through in order for the Google Analytics 4 to understand it. If that's what you're saying. But definitely also feel free to email me and we can like make sure I'm understanding your question.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Amanda. And yeah, and also for the question around the Google Sheet add-on versus BigQuery or Looker. That's something that Brad's addressed a little bit too in the past, because I think for the UA data, like that is still sort of like the big conundrum for folks, is what's the best way to do it. And in part, it's going to depend on really sort of how much data you're storing and where, et cetera. But we do have a couple of, I don't know, Claire, if you want to drop that in the FAQ, we have a couple of examples of like what are some good practices and how to do that. So Claire, if you want to, do you drop that in the chat? In fact, those are the two first questions, because that's as the first step process for a lot of this has been like, what do I do with all the data that's going to like go away at some point, you know? So you will have access to it for a while. It just won't be populating new stuff as of July 1st. But you'll still have access. I think that for what, up to 6 months, I think right now is the current. So.
Awesome. I do now have to jump, but if there are any additional questions, Shay, you know where to find me. So thank you all so much for your time. It was lovely meeting everybody. Yeah, and I look forward to like hearing from you maybe in the future, but good luck with Google Analytics 4. I know it's a beast, but I'm fully confident you all will be absolutely fine. And Shay has put together so many good resources. So take care, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Nicole. Thanks for everyone. And yeah, just a reminder, we'll have one more of these sessions next week. So if you have other GA4 questions, feel free to email them to me, and Brad will be back with us next week for one final session. And then we'll sort of move on from there and just sort of use our FAQ and update the resources as needed. But thanks everyone for joining. Have a great weekend.